I recently took a trip down to Lewiston, Idaho, and stayed a few days to see what it was like living there. I can honestly say my experience was completely different than what I thought it was going to be. Stick around because I'm going to go over all of the major factors of what it's like living in Lewiston, Idaho. Hey there, welcome back to another episode of Living Life in North Idaho. My name is Trent and I've been in this area for 30 years. If you're interested in what it's like living, eating, working, playing, or buying real estate here in Idaho, then this is the channel for you. Go ahead and tap the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so every time I come out with a new video, you get notified. And guys, I'm serious when I say this. Every single day, I'm getting calls, texts, emails from people just like you that have been watching the channel and they need a little bit more information about what it's like living in Idaho, or they have all the information and they just need someone to help get them moved up here. As a licensed agent, that's what I do. That's what my team does. So if this is you and you're ready to get moved to Idaho, reach out with a phone call, text, or email, day, nights, weekends, it does not matter. We love helping people get set up in this wonderful state. And before I dive in, I just need to say thank you to my partner agent down in Lewiston, Idaho, Chance Wheel. Without him, I don't think I could put this video together. He helped give me the inside scoop of what it's like living in Lewiston. He drove around with me for a couple of days, showing me all the different sites, and he's a great agent to have because it's 2 hours away. I'm not going to help buyers and sellers down there. It's a little bit outside of my jurisdiction, so having a great agent like Chance is what makes these videos possible. Now in this video, I'm going to do things a little bit differently. I'm of course going to go through the major factors of what it's like living in Lewiston, Idaho. But instead of finishing this out the way I normally do, I'm going to show a recording I did right before I left Lewiston. This is not scripted. This is just my raw, honest opinion of what it's like living there, of what I saw, and the experience I had. Living in Idaho for 30 years, I have watched this place change so much. But going to Lewiston, honestly, was like traveling back in time 30 years. And it made me remember all of the really positive things about being in small town Idaho. So I hope you stick around for that. All right, so let's dive in. What is it like living in Lewiston, Idaho? Well, Lewiston is a smaller town in the panhandle of North Idaho. It was founded in 1861 in the wake of the gold rush, and it sits on the banks of the Snake and Clearwater River. It's mostly known for its major industry, which is the paper mill, which sits right on the Clearwater River, but it also has agriculture and timber to help support its economy. Now, in terms of where Lewiston is, it's about 2 hours south of Coeur, 5 hours north of Boise, half hour south of Moscow, and about 5 minutes away from Clarkston, which is the town on the other side of the river that's in Washington. Now, like I said, Lewiston is a smaller town with only about 35,000 people. Clarkston across the river has about 9,000 people. So altogether, you have about 44,000 people between Lewiston and Clarkston. Now, you have a lot of small towns that are around Lewiston, like Lapwai, Cul-de-Sac, Orofino, and Slickpoo. Yeah, there's a place called Slickpoo near Lewiston, but these are all really small towns and everybody likes to go to the Lewiston-Clarkston area to do a lot of their shopping and get a little taste of city life. So what are the people and culture like in Lewiston, Idaho? Well, you do not have a lot of diversity. It is over 90% white Caucasian, with a very small percentage being Native American, African American, and Latino. As one local put it, Lewiston-Clarkston is the mecca for all of the small towns that are around Lewiston. A lot of people come there for the rodeo, the fair, they go there for a comedy show at the casino, and they do their shopping at Costco and Walmart. So even though it's quite a bit bigger than some of the smaller towns in Idaho, you still very much so have that small town vibe. People just love to have friendly conversation and visit. And I mean, I was at a cafe, I ended up talking to the manager for over 2 hours, but it was a really good conversation and it was mostly just feeling each other out and getting to know each other. In fact, I ended up getting the guy's information. I'm planning to stay in touch with him when I go down to Lewiston. And Those are the kind of people that are down there. They're just very friendly. They are on guard for outsiders that might cause trouble, but overall, they're just very inviting, very friendly people. But an important factor you need to know if you're looking at Lewiston, Idaho, is what is the income potential and the job opportunities down there. I was actually really pleasantly surprised when I looked this up. There are some really good jobs down in Lewiston, like the Clearwater Paper Corporation. They have a lot of high-paying jobs. That corporation has really sustained the economy down there. So you know, because nobody's gonna blame me for missing out on this part, because there's a paper mill, I don't know if you've ever been close to a paper mill, that does produce a smell. Now, the first day I was there, yes, I did smell the paper mill. Second day, I barely noticed it. The third day, I didn't notice it at all. So it is going to punch you in the face a little bit when you first get down there, but very, very quickly you stop smelling it. And especially if you're not close to it, if you're up on the hill, you really don't smell it that much at all. Anyway, back to what I was saying. You have the Clearwater Paper Corporation, you have the St. Joseph's Regional Medical Center. That has some really high-paying jobs for nurses and doctors and anybody in the medical field. And you also have Lewis and Clark State College and some other tech jobs. The median income is about $45,000, which for that area is really good. And you might think, well, Trent, $45,000, have you seen what the price of living is, the cost of living right now? Yes, I have. So when you look at Coeur d'Alene has a family median income of $56,000, but our median home price here is about $605,000 in Coeur d'Alene. Down in Lewiston, you got $45,000, but the median home price is only about $360,000. So that is considerably different. Plus, eating out, the cost of living down there is quite a bit less. You don't have the tourist attractions that you do in North Idaho, so the costs weren't as high when I was out there getting food and shopping around a little bit. But talking about median home prices, what does $360,000 actually get you in a place like Lewiston, Idaho? This, I was also really pleasantly surprised. A lot of the homes reminded me of downtown Coeur d'Alene, sort of early to mid-century craftsmen and ranchers. A lot of these have really, really good bones, good character. They've got wood floors and wood pillars and a lot of cool characteristics with it. And they have a lot of equity if you do decide to update it yourself. So where in Coeur d'Alene, the value has completely exploded on these and a lot of them have already been updated. In Lewiston, a lot of them have not. So there are some really, really good deals you can get in buying a home down in Lewiston. Now moving on to weather, this is a huge attraction for people that want to live in Idaho, but they don't want to have to deal with some of the extreme weather patterns that we can have in the north and south parts of Idaho. You're only at about 800 feet, actually less than 800 feet above sea level, so you're not going to deal with the really hot heat during the summer. It's a very dry heat. 80 to 90s is about as hot as it gets. Sometimes, very rarely, it can get above 100. I think we saw that last year. Again, very, very rare for that to happen, but it's about 80s and 90s. And in the wintertime, you only get an average of 1.2 inches per month of snow if you get any snow at all. It's usually around 30 to 40 degrees, so it does get cold, but it often doesn't dip down to where we have it up here, where it will hit the single digits sometimes. Actually, you get about 3 weeks of the single digits. That's usually where I have my long johns on. So very, very moderate temperatures down in the Lewiston area. Moving on to outdoor activities that you can do down in Lewiston. Now, Lewiston does not have the mountains that you have up here in North Idaho. So you're not gonna have the ski resorts. You're not gonna be climbing way up into the peaks. It's a lot of rolling hills, but there are mountains and lakes not too far away. You have the Dworshak State Park, which is only an hour away. Tons of trails, camping, fishing, boating, swimming, all kinds of stuff. So it's very close by. In Lewiston itself, you do have a ton of boating with the Snake and Clearwater River. You have some really, really great fishing, kayaking, swimming, pretty much anything you can do in the water, you can do on these rivers. You do have a lot of trails for hiking. You have a lot of ATV and dirt bike trails as well. And a lot of years you can golf all year round. There's also parks all over. That's one thing I noticed when I was driving around. Both in Lewiston and Clarkston, there are parks everywhere. Dog parks, skate parks, just parks for going on hikes and letting your kids play. So that was really cool to see in a town like Lewiston. Now, if you're like me, you're gonna see this as kind of a bummer. Because you don't have much of a winter, there's not a ton of stuff to do in Lewiston during the winter. You're not gonna have the snowmobiling, you're not gonna have snowboarding, skiing, you're not gonna have some of the outdoor activities that I really love in the winter. Now, if you don't like the snow, it's great. You can still go hiking, you can still golf, it's gonna be a little bit chilly, you can still fish, so you can still do all those things, but you're not gonna have as many things to do during the wintertime. Which leads me to my next category, indoor activities. Now, you do have bowling alleys, you do have movie theaters, you have an indoor shooting range, you also have the Clearwater Casino that can get comedy acts like Jeff Foxworthy or artists like Ludacris, but there's not gonna be a ton of stuff to do indoors. It's not gonna be like a city where you have comedy clubs. There is a playhouse, which I heard has some pretty good plays, but you are going to need to find things to do to keep yourself busy during the winter when it's a little bit colder outside and you might not want to be outside. So how about shopping? Well, like I said, the local I talked to said that Lewiston Clarkston is kind of like the mecca for all the redneck towns around it. You do have Costco, you do have Home Depot, you have North 40 that has a lot of the outdoor hunting and fishing gear. You have a lot of car dealerships up there. You have Ulta. I don't think there's a Target. I tried to look that up. My wife's really into Target, so of course I need to look that up. But you have all the major shopping areas that you need to go to. There's not gonna be an Apple store, but a lot of the stuff you can do through shipping. You can also obviously get Amazon. They have good internet service down there. So you have all your basic needs met when you live in Lewiston for shopping. In the more northern part of Idaho, you do have bears like grizzlies, you have moose, you have cougars, you have wolves. You don't have any of that stuff down in the Lewiston area. Really, all you're gonna need to worry about is raccoons, coyotes, skunks, bunnies, nothing major. So if you wanna go on a hike, you wanna go trail riding or ride your bike, you really don't have to worry about carrying any bear mace. Not that you have to worry about that in Coeur d'Alene, but there are trails very close that I would highly recommend that you carry your bear mace, but not down in Lewiston. So if you've been watching my videos and you really wanted North Idaho, but you go, I don't like the whole idea of predators, Lewiston's a really great option. Now, for those of you that love eating out, Lewiston does have some really great options. They have a great steakhouse that overlooks the river. It's got amazing views. I've heard really, really good things about this place. They've got the Blue Lantern Cafe, which honestly, if you go into Lewiston, you have to stop by the Blue Lantern. You have to say hi to Jan. That was one of the locals I talked to. I ended up talking to him for 2 hours. The guy just was so much fun to talk to, and he totally reminded me of what it was like growing up in Idaho in the 90s, how people would just talk to you and just love telling their stories. He told me stories about some of his redneck friends that completely just took me back of what it was like growing up in Idaho in the 90s. And that's something that he really reminded me of what made Lewiston really special. And it's the people, it's the connections, it's the stories and memories you make with the people that live there. So if you're in Lewiston, you gotta check that out. In small town Idaho, small town America, really, you're only gonna have a few options that are really, really good. And the rest, you're gonna have your franchises like KFC and Burger King and all that stuff. But there is some really great options for eating out down there. Also up in Moscow, which is only about 40 minutes away, you have some really great eating options there too. For me, I love cooking at home, but when I wanna go on a date, I love going to a really, really great place. And so I imagine most people are like that. So you do have some options in Lewiston. Schools, for my parents that have kids that are still in school, Lewiston ranks about 32nd in the state for their schools. Now, there are some really great private school options that are about $350 a month if you want to go that route. Being Idaho, you do have the option to homeschool, which a lot of people do that. I was homeschooled up until high school. It was great for my parents. It was, I think, pretty good for me. It gave me perspective on what it was like to learn without all the pressures and chaos of public school. But yeah, the schools in Lewiston, not super great. 32nd in Idaho, and Idaho already ranks pretty low. So you're definitely gonna wanna look at some alternative options or being involved with your kids as they go to school. I know, crazy idea, but something you might wanna consider. So let's talk about crime stats. A lot of people move to Idaho because the crime is so much lower here than a lot of the places that people are moving from. Lewiston's no exception. With the violent crime rate, you're about half of the national average, around 12 out of the national average being 22. The only difference is with property crime, it is a little bit higher than the rest of the country. A lot of people blame that on being next to Clarkston, because Clarkston's in Washington. You have some liberal judges that are very easy on criminals. So that's unfortunately a bad aspect of living in Lewiston. The property crime is a little bit higher. Having come from the low voltage electricity world in my early 20s, I can tell you alarm systems are very cheap these days, and surveillance systems. Man, the Ring cameras you can get from Costco or just Amazon, they're incredible. As long as you have Wi-Fi and power, you can do a Ring camera. It notifies you when people are coming to your house or they ring your doorbell. So it's really, really easy to avoid getting hit by property crimes. You just have to spend a little bit of time, a little bit of money to protect your house. So guys, those are all the major factors you need to consider when looking at living in Lewiston, Idaho. And as promised, I'm gonna show you that raw recording clip I did right before leaving Lewiston. It's my honest, raw opinion of what Lewiston is like and what gave me so much nostalgia about going down there and spending a few days talking to the locals and driving around town. It honestly was like going back in time 30 years of growing up in North Idaho. So I hope you watch it and leave me a comment in the comment section after you watch this video, letting me know what you liked about the video and what you didn't like. I'm gonna do another pros and cons list of living in Lewiston, Idaho, but stick around, watch the rest of this video and let me know in the comments what you think. Okay, so guys, being down in Lewiston, this really has reminded me what Idaho is really like throughout the rest of the state. Coeur d'Alene has gotten so polished lately with all the development and the building that's taking place and the renovations and the parks that it's kind of easy to forget what built Idaho. And a lot of it was the mining towns, it was the logging, it was the paper factories, it's the blue collar work that really created the foundation for a town to be built. And I'll be honest, driving through Lewiston, just, on the surface, it looks like a little bit of a rough town. It's not super polished. Homes are older, buildings are older. It's kind of shocked to see like a new, like Aspen Dental, that's a really clean, beautiful building because it's obviously been built in the last couple of years. But when you go downtown and you go and talk to people, I mean, literally I'm flying my drone and people will just stop and just start talking to me, talking about just life and what's been going on. And it was almost odd at first. I'm like, I don't know you. Why are you talking to me? And it's because people still value human connection in towns like Lewiston, which is getting more and more rare in our country. And so even though Lewiston is a little rough around the edges, there are some really redeeming qualities about it. And that kind of reminds me of the populace that lives here. There's a lot of people that are rough around the edges in these small towns, and they don't fit in with the political correctness that's happening right now. But is it right to just dismiss them and go, oh, there's nothing good here? Or do they have good redeeming qualities like knowing how to make human connection and caring about others and being loyal? And you know what? I would say that Lewiston is full of those people. It's probably been the most pleasant experience of my trip here. It's just the conversations that I've been able to have with locals and being invited in as not an outsider, not as a big city boy from Coeur d'Alene, but just as an American, as a human being who has feelings, who has beliefs, who has thoughts, who has cares, and they just want to strike up a conversation, connect with you. I think that's really what makes Lewiston a special place. Now, there's still some really, really great things about Lewiston. They do have some really great restaurants. They have a lot of recreation and things to do, and the weather here is quite a bit nicer than you're gonna find in most of the rest of the state. And there's world-class fishing, and there's actually a seaport here, which just blows my mind. There's a seaport in Idaho. It goes up the Snake River to the Columbia and then out into the ocean. It's pretty crazy. But there's so many things about Lewiston that I didn't realize, and it really took a trip down here and hanging out with people, talking with locals, spending some time to really see what this town was all about. And I think a lot of Idaho is like that. So thank you so much for joining me on this experience of living in Lewiston, Idaho. Lewiston's not for everybody, just like a lot of places in Idaho. It's not for everybody, but if you're looking for moderate weather, you're looking for affordable housing and plenty of outdoor recreation with good food and having a town right next to you that has the amenities that a lot of us need, like our Costco's, Lewiston is a really great place. So if you are interested in moving to Lewiston, reach out to us at the phone number and email below. I will get you connected to my partner down here. Chance Wheel is a really, really awesome guy. He's young, but he's very experienced, very knowledgeable, and very good at what he does. And make sure you give me a thumbs up and comment what you liked and what you disliked about this video. And until the next one, I will see you later.